The carrier deck was alive with motion, a ballet of men and machines under the bruised pre-dawn sky. Steam hissed from the catapults. Jet exhaust shimmered in the cold air, and the faint scent of hydraulic fluid mixed with salt and sweat. From the catwalk above, Maverick, older now, silver at the temples, his eyes sharper than ever, watched the chaos below. He saw everything: the pilots swaggering, the deck chiefs barking orders, the ground crew hustling in the shadows. He leaned on the railing, voice low and steady, as if telling the story to an old friend. Everyone thought it was just another refuel, but you'll want to see what happens at 2247. Trust me. Down on the deck, a girl in grease-stained coveralls moved with purpose. Most people didn't even know her name. To them, she was just Wrench. Sam Wrench Ramirez had always been good at blending in. She'd learned it young, growing up in a house where her mother worked double shifts and her father's voice was mostly an echo on the phone from some far-off base. By the time she was 16, she could change the oil on a pickup in the dark and rewire a radio with her eyes closed. But the Navy was a different world. Here, on the flight deck of the USS Liberty, she was just another wrench turner, one of dozens who kept the jets flying and the pilots happy. The pilots barely noticed her, unless something broke, and then it was always her fault. The chiefs barked orders, the other techs rolled their eyes, and Sam learned to keep her head down and her hands moving. But Maverick noticed. He saw the way she lingered by the F-35s, fingers tracing the edges of access panels, lips moving as she recited checklists from memory. He saw the hunger in her eyes, the way she watched the pilots with a mixture of awe and envy. He'd seen that look before in the mirror, 40 years ago. It was supposed to be a routine morning. The Liberty was on station, 100 miles off the coast, running exercises with the fleet. The air was thick with tension. Everyone knew the enemy was out there, watching, waiting for a mistake. Sam's shift started before dawn. She checked the manifest, grabbed her toolkit, and joined the line of ground crew, heading out to the deck. The F-35s loomed in the half-light, sleek and deadly, their canopies beaded with dew. Her assignment was simple: refuel Blaze's jet. Blaze was a legend among the pilots, cocky, fearless, the kind of guy who made everything look easy. Sam had refueled his jet a dozen times, but today something felt off. As she approached, she heard a faint whine, a sound that didn't belong. She knelt by the nose gear, pressed her ear to the fuselage, and listened. The whine was there, faint but steady, a high-pitched note, like a mosquito trapped behind glass. She frowned, checked the hydraulic lines, and ran her hand over the access panel. Warm. Too warm. She flagged the chief, but he was busy yelling at another tech. Just refuel it, Wrench. We're behind schedule. Sam hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to dig deeper, but she'd learned the hard way that arguing with the chief got you nowhere. She hooked up the fuel line, eyes never leaving the panel. From above, Maverick watched her work. He remembered his own days as a junior officer, always questioning, always pushing. He'd made enemies, but he'd also made a name for himself. He wondered if Sam would do the same, or if the system would grind her down. He saw the way she checked and rechecked the panel, the way her fingers hovered over the diagnostic port. He saw the frustration in her eyes when the chief barked at her to hurry up. He saw her grit her teeth, finish the refuel, and step back as Blaze strode onto the deck. Blaze was everything Sam wasn't: tall, loud, confident. He slapped her on the shoulder as he passed, not unkindly, but with the easy arrogance of someone used to being the center of attention. Thanks, Wrench. Try not to spill any this time, yeah? The other techs laughed. Sam forced a smile, but her mind was still on the line. She watched as Blaze climbed into the cockpit, ran through his checks. and gave the thumbs dash up dot. The catapult crew moved into position. The air boss's voice crackled over the loudspeakers. Launch in 30 seconds. Sam stepped back, eyes fixed on the F-35's belly. She saw the warning light flicker just for a second, then gone. She glanced at the chief, but he was already looking away. The launch was flawless. The F-35 roared down the catapult, afterburner lighting up the dawn. Blaze whooped over the radio, his voice crackling with adrenaline. Sam watched the jet disappear into the sky, her stomach twisting. Something was wrong, she knew it. She'd seen that light, heard that whine. She wanted to say something, too. Stop the launch, but it was too late. She packed up her tools, head down, and made her way back to the hangar. The other techs were already talking about breakfast, about the weekend, about anything but the job. Maverick watched her go, a frown creasing his brow. He'd seen too many disasters start with a gut feeling ignored. An hour later, the call came. And Blaze was in trouble. The F-35's hydraulic system was failing, controls sluggish, warning lights flashing. He was limping back to the carrier, fighting to keep the jet in the air. The flight deck snapped into action. Fire crews rolled out, medics stood by, and the air boss barked orders. Sam was summoned to the ready room, her heart pounding. She stood before the officers, hands shaking. The chief glared at her. What did you do, Wrench? Sam explained what she'd seen, what she'd heard. She told them about the whine, the warm panel, the flickering light. The CAG listened, eyes narrowed. Did you run a diagnostic? Sam shook her head. I wasn't authorized. The chief said. The chief cut her off. She's just a tech. She doesn't have the clearance. The CAG turned to Maverick, who had slipped into the back of the room. What do you think, Captain? Blaze brought the F-35 in hot, skidding across the deck, smoke pouring from the landing gear. The crash crew swarmed the jet, dousing the brakes, pulling Blaze from the cockpit. Sam watched from the sidelines, guilt gnawing at her. She knew she should have done more, should have said something sooner. The jet was towed to the hangar, a team of engineers descending on it like vultures. Sam hovered at the edge, desperate to help, but the chief waved her off. Go clean up. Wrench, leave this to the pros. The investigation was quick and brutal. The hydraulic line had failed a tiny crack, invisible to the naked eye, but enough to cripple the jet. The engineers blamed the ground crew. The chief blamed Sam. Maverick watched it all, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. He'd seen this before, good people thrown under the bus to protect the chain of command. He found Sam in the mess, staring at her untouched food. He sat beside her, silent for a moment. You did everything you could, he said finally. Sam shook her head. It wasn't enough. Maverick looked her in the eye. Next time, trust your gut, even if it means breaking the rules. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. She replayed the morning over and over, searching for what she'd missed. She pulled out her tablet, scrolled through the F-35 schematics, and studied the hydraulic system. She found a bulletin buried deep in the archives about a software patch for the diagnostic system. It was supposed to catch microfractures in the hydraulic lines, but it hadn't been implemented on the Liberty's jets. Sam's heart raced. She realized that with a simple code entry, a 3-second hack, she could have forced the system to run the advanced diagnostic. She stared at the screen, anger and frustration boiling over. She'd had the answer all along, but no one had. Listened. The next morning, Sam was back on the deck before sunrise. She found the chief, handed him the bulletin, and explained what she'd found. He barely glanced at it. Not my problem, Wrench. That's above my pay grade. Sam gritted her teeth. She knew what she had to do. She waited until the hangar was empty, slipped into the F-35, and accessed the diagnostic port. She entered the code, watched as the system ran the advanced check. The screen lit up 3 microfractures, detected .SAM snapped photos, printed the report, and marched straight to the CAG's office. The CAG listened, eyes widening as Sam explained what she'd done. He called in the engineers, showed them the report. They ran the test on every jet in the squadron. 3 more microfractures found. The CAG turned to Sam, a rare smile breaking through his stern demeanor. "You may have just saved this squadron, Ramirez." Sam felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time, she felt seen. But as she left the office, her phone buzzed. A message from Blaze. "Thanks, Wrench. I owe you one. But there's something weird in the flight logs. Meet me on the deck at 22:47. Sam's heart skipped a beat. She had a feeling this was only the beginning. The deck was a different world at night. Floodlights painted everything in harsh white. Shadows stretched long and deep, and the roar of jets gave way to a tense, humming quiet. Sam stood at the edge of the hangar, a printout from her diagnostic. Hack clutched in her hand, the words of the CAG echoing in her mind. "You may have just saved this squadron, Ramirez." But there was no time to savor the moment. Her phone buzzed again. Blaze, insistent. "Meet me on the deck at 22:47. She looked at the clock. 10 minutes. Her heart thudded with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Blaze had never messaged her before, never. In fact, spoken more than a few words outside the cockpit. For him to reach out now, after everything, meant something was off. She made her way across the deck, weaving between parked jets and tool carts, the night air thick with the smell of fuel and ozone. The carrier's island loomed above, lights blinking in the control tower. Sam felt exposed, every step watched by unseen eyes. She wondered if the chief or the engineers were tracking her movements, if someone would stop her before she reached Blaze, but no one did. She found him by his jet, helmet tucked under one arm, flight suit half unzipped. He looked tired, older than his years, the cocky grin replaced by a furrowed brow. "Wrench," he said, nodding. "Thanks for coming." Sam shrugged, trying to play it cool. "You said you found something?" Blaze handed her a tablet. "Flight logs from my last run. There's a gap 3 seconds, right before the hydraulics failed. System went dark, then came back online. I've never seen anything like it." Sam scrolled through the data, her mind racing. 3 seconds. The same window she'd used for the hack, but she hadn't touched Blaze's jet until after the failure. What could have caused a blackout mid-flight? Blaze watched her, eyes sharp. "You know what it means?" She hesitated. "Not yet, but I'll find out." He nodded, trusting her in a way that surprised them both. "Let me know what you find, and thanks for the save." Sam tucked the tablet under her arm and hurried back to the hangar, mind spinning. She needed answers. Fast. The next hours blurred into a frenzy of research. She pored over technical manuals, scoured forums, and dug into maintenance logs. The more she read, the clearer it became. The F-35's diagnostic system had a vulnerability, a gap in its code that could be exploited by a specific sequence of commands. It was meant as a failsafe, a way for engineers to reset the system in emergencies. But in the wrong hands, it could be used to mask critical failures or worse, to sabotage the jet mid-flight. Sam's hands trembled as she pieced it together. The blackout in Blaze's flight log wasn't a glitch. Someone had triggered the failsafe remotely. Someone on the ship. She stared at the screen, her mind racing through the possibilities. Was it an accident? A test gone wrong? Or was someone deliberately trying to take out the squadron's best pilot? A wave of nausea hit her. If she was right, the threat wasn't just mechanical, it was human. And it was still out there. She printed her findings, tucked them into her coveralls, and slipped out of the hangar. The ship was quieter now, most of the crew asleep or on watch. Sam moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, her heart pounding in. Her chest, she found Maverick in the wardroom, nursing a cup of coffee, his gaze distant. He looked up as she entered, eyes narrowing with curiosity. Couldn't sleep? He asked, voice gentle. Sam shook her head, sliding into the seat across from him. She handed him the printout, watching as he scanned the pages, his expression growing grimmer by the second. You're saying someone did this on purpose? He asked quietly. Sam nodded. Or at least someone knew how. The failsafe isn't public knowledge. You have to dig for it. Maverick leaned back, rubbing his jaw. You realize what this means? If you're right, it's not just a maintenance issue. It's a security breach. She nodded, the weight of it settling on her shoulders. What do we do? He considered for a long moment. We keep this quiet. For now, you keep digging. I'll talk to the CAG, but Sam, be careful. If someone's willing to sabotage a jet, they won't think twice about shutting up a tech. Sam swallowed hard, but nodded. She'd come this far. She wasn't backing down now. The next day dawned gray and tense. The Liberty was on high alert. Every crew member on edge. The engineers ran diagnostics on every jet, but found nothing new. The chief barked orders with extra venom, his eyes lingering on Sam with suspicion. She kept her head down, working through her checklist, but her mind was elsewhere. She watched the other techs, looking for signs, nervous glances, whispered conversations, anything out of the ordinary. But everyone seemed normal. Too normal. At lunch, she sat alone in the mess, picking at her food. Blaze dropped into the seat across from her, eyes scanning the room. Anything? He whispered. She shook her head. Not yet, but I'm not giving up. He nodded, respect in his gaze. You're braver than most pilots I know. She smiled, a flicker of pride warming her chest. For the first time, she felt like she belonged. That afternoon, the Liberty received new orders: combat air patrol, high alert. The tension ratcheted up another notch. Sam's hands shook as she fueled the jets, double-checking every line, every connection. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go wrong. As the sun set, the deck came alive with activity. Pilots suited up, ground crew hustled, and the air boss's voice crackled over the speakers. Sam watched as Blaze climbed into his jet, gave her a thumbs up, and taxied to the catapult. She held her breath as the jet launched, disappearing into the darkening sky. Minutes later, the alarm sounded. Hydraulic failure F-35, call sign Blaze. Sam's blood ran cold. Not again. The deck snapped into action. Fire crews rolled out. Medics stood by, and the air boss barked orders. Sam raced to the control room. Heart pounding. She found Maverick. There, eyes glued to the radar screen. He glanced at her, then back at the blip that was Blaze's jet. He's losing altitude, Maverick muttered. If he can't get the gear down. Sam didn't wait. She sprinted for the hangar, grabbed her toolkit, and ran for the flight line. She reached the edge of the deck as Blaze's jet appeared on final approach. Smoke streaming from the belly. He touched down hard, skidding across the deck, sparks flying. The crash crew swarmed the jet, dousing the brakes, pulling Blaze from the cockpit. Sam pushed through the crowd, ignoring the shouts. She reached the jet, dropped to her knees, and popped the access panel. The same whine, the same heat. She yanked her tablet from her bag, plugged into the diagnostic port, and ran. The hack, 3 seconds. The screen flickered, then lit up. Hydraulic failure, triggered remotely. She stared at the data, heart pounding. Someone was still out there. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. She printed the report, ran for the CAG's office, and burst through the door. He looked up, startled. Ramirez? She slammed the report on his desk. It's not a malfunction. It's sabotage. He read the report, his face growing pale. Are you sure? She nodded. Positive. And whoever did it is still on this ship. The CAG stood, grabbing his radio. Security locked down the hangar. No one in or out. Sam sagged into a chair, exhaustion washing over her. She'd done it. She'd found the saboteur. But as she looked out the window at the darkening sky, she knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Maverick found her an hour later, sitting alone in the corridor. You did good, kid, he said, clapping her on the shoulder. Sam shook her head. It's not enough. Not until we find who did this. He nodded, pride in his eyes. We will? Together? As the ship settled into uneasy silence, Sam knew one thing for sure. She wasn't invisible anymore. And whatever came next, she was ready. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the real enemy was closer than anyone realized. And the next move would put the entire carrier at risk. The Liberty's corridors were never truly quiet, but that night, the tension was a living thing. Every clang of a hatch, every burst of static from the intercom seemed sharper, more urgent. Sam sat in the security office, her coveralls streaked with grease and sweat as the CAG and Maverick poured over her report. The air was thick with the smell of burnt coffee and the low hum of nervous energy. Outside, the hangar was locked down. Security teams checked IDs, searched toolboxes, and questioned every tech and pilot who'd been near the crippled F-35. The chief paced the hall, jaw clenched, eyes darting between Sam and the officers. He was angry at the disruption, at the implication that someone on his crew could be a traitor. Maverick leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching the room with the calm of someone who'd seen too many crises to be rattled by one. More, he caught Sam's eye and gave her a nod, a silent reminder that she wasn't alone. The CAG finished reading, his face grim. This is a hell of a thing, Ramirez. If you're right, we've got a saboteur on board. Someone with access to the diagnostic codes and the guts to use them. Sam swallowed, the weight of it pressing down on her. I can help you narrow it down. The hack requires two-factor authentication and access card, and a PIN. Only a handful of people have both. The CAG nodded. We'll start there. Security will pull the logs, check the access records. In the meantime, I want you to keep your eyes open. If you see anyone out of place, you come straight to me. Sam nodded, her mind already racing through the list of suspects. The engineers, the senior techs, maybe even the chief. She tried to picture each of them at the diagnostic port, fingers flying over the keypad, eyes cold and focused. It didn't fit. None of them seemed capable of something so calculated. But then again, she reminded herself, you never really know what people are capable of, not until it's too late. The investigation moved quickly. Security combed through hours of surveillance footage, cross-referenced access logs, and ran background checks on every crew member with the necessary clearance. The list of suspects shrank from dozens to a handful. 2 engineers, 1 senior. Tech, and to Sam's surprise, Blaze? She stared at the report, disbelief warring with fear. Blaze? He was a pilot, not a tech. He shouldn't have had access to the diagnostic system. But the logs didn't lie. His card had been used to unlock the port just minutes before the first failure. Maverick read over her shoulder, frowning. Could be a stolen card. Or maybe someone borrowed it without asking. Sam shook her head. Blaze is careful. He wouldn't just leave his card lying around. The CAD called Blaze in for questioning. Sam watched through the glass as the pilot sat stiff-backed, jaw set, eyes blazing with anger. He denied everything said, He'd never touched the diagnostic port, that his card was always on him. Security checked the logs again, but the evidence was damning out after an hour. Blaze stormed out, slamming the door behind him. He caught Sam's eye, his expression a mix of betrayal and desperation. "You believe me, right?" he demanded. Sam hesitated. She wanted to. She really did. But the logs... "I don't know," she admitted, "but I'll find out." He nodded, shoulders slumping. "I hope so, because if you don't, I'm done." Sam watched him go, guilt twisting in her gut. She wanted to chase him, to tell him she believed him, but she couldn't lie, not to him, not to herself. The CAG turned to her, eyes hard. "Keep digging, Ramirez. I want answers by morning." She nodded, exhaustion settling into her bones. She'd been running on adrenaline for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be tired. She made her way back to her bunk, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 2 days. The whine in the F-35's hydraulics, the chief's dismissive orders, Blaze's haunted eyes. Somewhere in the haze of memory, a detail surfaced, something she'd missed. She sat up, heart racing. The diagnostic port on Blaze's jet had been accessed twice, once before the failure and once after, when she'd run her own hack. But the logs only showed one entry, Blaze's card. She grabbed her tablet, pulled up the access records, and scrolled through the data. There it was, a gap, 3 minutes long, where the system had gone dark. No logs, no entries, nothing. A cold chill ran down her spine. Someone had wiped the logs. Someone who knew the system inside and out. She dressed quickly, slipping out of the berthing area and heading for the hangar. The ship was quiet, most of the crew asleep or on watch. She moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, her heart pounding. In her chest dot, she reached the F-35, ducked under the fuselage, and plugged her tablet into the diagnostic port. She ran a deep scan, searching for traces of the wiped logs. It took minutes long, agonizing minutes, but finally, she found it. A ghost entry, a fragment of code left behind by the saboteur. She copied the code, heart racing. It was a signature unique, untraceable, but familiar. She'd seen it before, buried in the maintenance logs of another jet. She pulled up the records, cross-referenced the entries, and felt her blood run cold. The same code had been used on 3 different jets each, one assigned to a different pilot, each one suffering a critical failure in the past month. The pattern was clear. Someone was targeting the squadron's best pilots. One by one, she ran to the security office, burst through the door, and shoved the tablet at the CAG. "It's not Blaze," she gasped. "It's someone else. Someone who's been here for weeks." The CAG scanned the data, his face growing pale. "Who?" Sam shook her head. "I don't know, but I can find out. I need access to the full maintenance logs, every jet, every repair, every code entry." He hesitated and nodded. "Do it. And Ramirez, be careful." She spent the next hours buried in data, cross-referencing logs, searching for patterns. Maverick brought her coffee, sat beside her in silence, offering comfort without words. Finally, as dawn broke over the horizon, she found it. A name. Senior Tech Mark Dorsey. He'd been on every shift where a failure occurred, had access to every jet, and his card had been used to access the diagnostic ports, always just minutes before a failure. She printed the report, heart pounding, and ran for the CAG's office. He read the report, his expression hardening. "Get security. Bring Dorsey in." They found him in the hangar, working on a jet. He didn't resist, just looked at Sam with a cold, empty smile. "Took you long enough," he said. They marched him to the brig, the crew watching in stunned silence. The chief stared at Sam, disbelief written across his face. Maverick found her on the flight line, watching the sun rise over the deck. "You did it," he said, pride in his voice. Sam shook her head. "Not yet. We still don't know why." He nodded. "But we will." As the ship settled into a new day, Sam felt a strange mix of relief and dread. She'd found the saboteur, but the questions lingered. Why target the squadron? Who was Dorsey working for? And was the threat truly over? She didn't have the answers. Not yet, but she knew one thing. She wasn't invisible anymore. And whatever came next, she was ready. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the real danger was still out there, waiting for its moment to strike. The Liberty's dawn was always a spectacle, golden light slanting across the deck, jets glinting like knives, crew moving with the brisk purpose of a well-oiled machine. But this morning, the mood was different. Word had spread fast. A saboteur. In their midst, a senior tech led away in cuffs. Conversations were hushed, glances wary. Trust, once taken for granted, had become a rare and precious thing. Sam felt the change most of all. Where once she'd been invisible, now every eye seemed to track her. Some looked at her with new respect, others with suspicion. The chief, his pride wounded, barely spoke. The other techs gave her a wide berth, unsure whether to thank her or fear her. Only Maverick seemed unchanged, steady, supportive, his presence a quiet anchor in the storm. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind kept returning to Dorsey's last words. "Took you long enough." There was no anger in his voice, no regret, just a chilling certainty, as if he'd known all along how this would end. A thought gnawed at her. Had she really stopped the threat, or only uncovered the tip of something far worse? The CAG summoned her to his office. He was flanked by 2 officers from Naval Intelligence, their uniforms crisp, their faces unreadable. They questioned her for hours. How she'd found the hack, how she'd traced the code, what she knew about Dorsey's habits and contacts. Sam answered as best she could, her nerves fraying with each new detail. Finally, one of the officers leaned forward, voice low. "You understand, Ramirez, this wasn't just sabotage. Dorsey was in contact with a foreign agent. He was paid to cripple our air wing, to make the Liberty vulnerable. If you hadn't caught him, we might not be having this conversation." Sam swallowed, the weight of it settling on her shoulders. She'd always known her work mattered, but she'd never imagined it could mean the difference between safety and disaster for the entire fleet. When the questioning was over, the CAG dismissed her with a nod. "Good work, Ramirez. Take the rest of the day. You've earned it." But rest was impossible. Sam wandered the deck, her thoughts a tangled knot of relief, guilt, and uncertainty. She found herself drawn to the F-35s, running her hands over their sleek skins, listening for the faintest hint of trouble. The jets were silent, their secrets hidden for now. Blaze found her by his plane, a rare smile breaking through his usual bravado. "Heard you saved my ass." "Twice," she shrugged, embarrassed. "Just doing my job." He shook his head. "You did more than that. You saw what no one else did. You trusted your gut." Sam smiled, the tension easing a little. "Guess I learned from the best." Blaze laughed, clapping her on the shoulder. "You keep this up, you'll be running the place before long." The compliment warmed her, but it also reminded her of how much she still didn't know. Dorsey was gone, but the damage she'd done lingered. The squadron's trust was shaken, the chain of command strained, and somewhere out there, the enemy was still watching, waiting for another chance. That night, a storm rolled in, lightning flickering on the horizon, thunder rumbling through the hull. The Liberty rode the swells, her crew tense and alert. Sam lay in her bunk, sleep elusive. She replayed every moment of the past week, searching for what she'd missed. A knock at the door startled her. Maverick stood in the corridor, his face grave. "Mind if I come in?" She nodded, sitting up as he entered. He sat on the edge of her bunk, hands clasped. "You did good, Sam. Better than most officers I've known." She looked down, embarrassed. "I just followed the evidence." He shook his head. "You followed your instincts. That's what makes a great sailor." They sat in silence for a moment, the storm's fury muffled by steel bulkheads. Finally, Maverick spoke. "There's something you should know. Dorsey didn't act alone. Naval intelligence found encrypted messages on his laptop coordinates, schedules, technical specs. Someone fed him inside information. Someone's still on this ship." Sam's blood ran cold. "Who?" Maverick shook his head. "We? Don't know. Not yet, but we will." He stood, laying a hand on her shoulder. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." But sleep was impossible. Sam's mind churned with questions. Who else was involved? How deep did the conspiracy go? And what would they do now that Dorsey was gone? At dawn, the Liberty received new orders, a high-priority mission deep into contested waters. The air wing was to launch a full strike package at first light. Every jet had to be ready, every system flawless. Sam threw herself into her work, double-checking every connection, every line of code. The other techs followed her lead, their trust in her growing with each successful check. But as the launch hour approached, a new problem emerged. One of the F-35's Blaze's jet refused to power up. The diagnostics showed nothing unusual, but the engine wouldn't start. The chief barked orders. The engineers scrambled, but nothing worked. Sam knelt by the nose gear, listening. The faint whine was back, softer this time, almost imperceptible. She ran her hand over the access panel, feeling for heat. It was a subtle warmth, just like before. She plugged in her tablet, ran the advanced diagnostic, and stared in disbelief. The same ghost code, the same signature. Someone had sabotaged the jet again. She sprinted for the CAG's office, breathless. "It's happening again. The code's back." The CAG's face hardened. Locked down the hangar. No one in or out. Security swept the area, searching every tech, every tool cart. But the saboteur was gone, vanished into the maze of corridors and compartments. Sam returned to the jet, frustration boiling over. She knew the code, knew how to fix it. She entered the hack. 3 seconds, 1 breath, 1 heartbeat, and the system reset. The engine roared to life. The warning lights vanished. Blaze climbed into the cockpit, gave her a thumbs up, and taxied to the catapult. The strike package launched on schedule, the Liberty steaming into the heart of danger. But as the jets disappeared into the sky, Sam felt a chill. The enemy was still out there, still watching. And now they knew she was onto them. That night, she found Maverick on the flight line, watching the stars. "They're not done, are they?" she asked. He shook his head. "Not by a long shot." She nodded, determination hardening her resolve. "Then neither am I." As the Liberty sailed into the storm, Sam knew the battle wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt ready. She wasn't just a wrench. She was the line between chaos and order, the last defense against the darkness. And whatever came next, she would face it head on. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the next attack would come not from outside, but from within. And this time, the cost would be higher than anyone could imagine. The Liberty steamed deeper into contested waters, her hull slicing through black waves under a sky thick with storm clouds and tension. The Air Wing's successful strike had bought the fleet precious hours, but the mood on board was brittle as shea. Silence that stretched between every clang of boots on steel, every clipped radio call, every sideways glance among the crew. Sam felt it too, a static charge beneath her skin, as if the ship itself was waiting for something to break. She barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the ghost code, the flicker of sabotage in the F-35 systems, the shadow of a traitor still at large. The CAG and naval intelligence doubled security, but the saboteur had vanished, leaving no trace but the chaos in their wake. Sam threw herself into work, checking every jet, every diagnostic, every line of code. She became the hub of the ground crew, her authority quietly accepted, her instincts trusted even by the chief. Maverick watched from a distance, pride and worry mingling in his gaze. He saw the toll the hunt was taking on her, the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her shoulders, the way she flinched at every unexpected noise. He remembered his own nights like this, when the enemy was a rumor in the dark, and every friend might be a foe. The Liberty's next mission was the riskiest yet. A night operation, all jets airborne, the carrier running dark to avoid detection. Sam worked alongside the techs, double and triple checking the F-35s. She could feel the crew's faith in her, but also their fear. If she missed something, the cost would be catastrophic. As the sun set, the deck was bathed in red light. The pilots suited up. The ground crew moved with practiced urgency, and the air boss's voice crackled over the loudspeakers. Launch sequence in 5 minutes. All personnel clear the deck. Sam finished her checks on Blaze's jet, her hands moving on autopilot. She lingered by the nose gear, listening for that telltale whine, feeling for heat. Nothing. For a moment, she allowed herself to hope that the worst was over. Then she heard a faint click just behind her. She turned, heart pounding, but saw nothing. The deck was almost empty, the last techs hustling off the line. She shook her head, blaming nerves, and started toward the hatch. A voice stopped her, low, urgent, almost pleading. "Sam!" She spun around. It was one of the junior techs, Malik, a quiet guy, always kept to himself, good with electronics. He looked terrified. "I need to show you something," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "It's about the code." Sam's pulse spiked. "What about it?" Malek handed her a flash drive, his hands shaking. "I found this in the avionics bay. Someone hid it behind the main panel. It's got logs, messages, stuff I don't understand. But your name is in there, over and over." Sam stared at the drive, dread coiling in her gut. "Who else knows?" "No one. I didn't want to go to the chief. I trust you." She nodded, forcing calm. "Come with me." They hurried to the maintenance office, locked the door, and plugged the drive into Sam's tablet. The screen filled with lines of code, encrypted messages, access logs. She recognized the ghost code immediately, her hack, but altered, refined, weaponized. She scrolled through the messages, her breath catching. The saboteur had been watching her, tracking her every move. They knew about her hack, her suspicions, even her late-night conversations with Maverick. The last message was a chilling warning. If Ramirez gets too close, shut her down. Malik looked at her, fear in his eyes. "What does it mean?" "It means I'm next," Sam whispered. Pounding at the door made them both jump. Security, faces grim. "CAG wants you on the bridge, Ramirez." "Now." Sam grabbed the drive, tucked it into her coveralls, and followed them through the winding corridors. The bridge was a hive of activity officers barking orders, radar screens. Glowing, the captain standing rigid at the center. The CAG turned as she entered, his face drawn. "We've got a problem. The F-35s are launching, but Blaze's jet just went dark. No comms, no telemetry. He's flying blind." Sam's heart lurched. It's the code. The saboteur's still here. They've locked him out. The captain's voice was iron. "Can you fix it?" Sam nodded, adrenaline sharpening her focus. I need to get to the comms room. I can piggyback a signal through the backup channel, trigger a manual reset. The CAG didn't hesitate. Go. She sprinted through the ship, Malik at her side. The comms room was cramped, filled with humming equipment and the acrid smell of ozone. Sam plugged in her tablet, fingers flying over the keys. She accessed the backup channel, sent the reset command, and waited. Nothing. She tried again, altering the code, bypassing the security protocols. Still nothing. Panic clawed at her, but she forced it down. She thought of Blaze, alone in the dark, trusting her to save him. Malik watched her, his own fear barely contained. What if it doesn't work? Sam shook her head. It has to. She tried a third time, this time using the saboteur's own code of risk, but the only option left. She entered the sequence, held her breath, and hit send. For 3 seconds, the room was silent. Then the radio crackled to life. Liberty, this is Blaze. Systems are back online. Repeat, systems are green. Cheers erupted in the comms room. Sam sagged in her chair, relief flooding through her. She'd done it. She'd saved him, but the celebration was short-lived. The captain's voice cut through the noise. We've got another problem. Security breach in the engine room. Fire reported, possible sabotage. Sam's blood ran cold. The saboteur wasn't finished, not by a long shot. She raced with Malik to the engine room, the corridors thick with smoke and shouting crew. Flames licked at the bulkheads, alarms blared, and the chief was barking orders, his face smeared with soot. Sam grabbed a fire extinguisher, Malik at her side, and they fought their way to the source of the blaze. She saw it immediately, a device wired into the main control panel, blinking red. She yanked it free, tossed it to Malik. Get this to the CAG. Now. She and the chief doused the flames, the smoke choking, her lungs burning. When the fire was finally out, she collapsed against the bulkhead, coughing. The chief knelt beside her, his anger gone, replaced by something like respect. You saved us, Ramirez. Again. She managed a weak smile. Just doing my job, Malik returned, breathless. The CAG wants you on the bridge. Now. Sam staggered to her feet, adrenaline carrying her through the chaos. On the bridge, the captain and CAG were conferring with naval intelligence. The device Malik had recovered open on the table. It's a remote detonator, the officer explained. Would have taken out the engines and the ship. The captain turned to Sam, his gaze fierce. You stopped it. You saved the Liberty. Sam shook her head, exhaustion crashing over her. Not just me. Malik found the drive. The chief helped with the fire. It was all of us. The CAG smiled, pride shining in his eyes. You led them, Ramirez. That's what matters. Maverick appeared at her side, his hand warm on her shoulder. You did good, kid. Real good. She smiled, the tension finally easing. For the first time, she felt like she belonged not just as a tech, but as a leader. The Liberty sailed on, her crew battered but unbroken. The saboteur was gone. The threat ended, but the lessons lingered. Trust was hard won, easily lost, and always worth fighting for. As the sun rose over the horizon, Sam stood on the deck, watching the jets return. Blaze landed first, his jet gleaming in the morning light. He climbed out, crossed the deck, and pulled her into a fierce hug. Couldn't have done it without you, Wrench. She laughed, the sound bright and free. That's what I'm here for. Maverick watched from the catwalk, pride swelling in his chest. He'd seen heroes in cockpits and on the flight line, but Sam was something different, a new kind of hero, forged in the shadows. Her courage quiet but unbreakable. He turned to the camera, his voice low and steady. Sometimes the ones told to just refuel are the ones who save the mission. Sometimes the quietest voice is the one you need to hear." He smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories of grit, guts, and the unexpected, join the squad. Click subscribe. You never know whose story will save the day next. And as the Liberty sailed toward a new dawn, San Ramirez ground crew, hacker, hero knew she was ready for whatever came next.